When kids lash out or negatively act and speak out in the classroom, there are repercussions. There's detention, suspension, expulsion, and sometimes legal ramifications. But what's the story behind their behavior? And what would the response be if we knew that for some, their actions are directly connected to the violence they witnessed or endured and the long-term damage that violence has caused, such as trauma? According to a survey done by the Department of Justice, 58% of kids have experienced or witnessed violence. Joining me to discuss a local effort to mitigate the impact of this public health crisis is Moses Robinson, a longtime law enforcement agent and a consultant for Futures Without Violence. Ruth Turner, Executive Director of Student Support Services with the Rochester City School District, and Gwen Olton, a Senior Consultant with Coordinated Care Services. Welcome to all of you. Welcome back to two of you. It's good to see you. So what people may not know is that when children are exposed to violence, they have a higher risk of being caught up in that cycle of criminal behavior, getting involved in that cycle of criminal behavior later in life. And Moses, I'm looking at you because you have a long history in law enforcement. You've been involved in this work around the country. How does that happen? How is there long-term damage?
Well, we know through, through a lot of research today, what we call the neuroscience of brain development, that a lot of our children, especially the younger they are, when they're exposed to violence, that it has long-term effects on their brain and how they, even to the extent where it damages the brain in areas where they're not able to make right decisions about their lives. And so basically what we're saying is that because of the level of violence and exposure to violence and the repeated exposure to violence, that it has debilitating effects on their development of their brain in the long term.
And Ruth and Gwen, what are we seeing then, right? So we hear that, but what does it look like? How does that play out in the home, in the classroom, in the community?
Well, what we see often in the schools and the classroom is we see very aggressive behavior. Children as young as kindergarten, first grade, there's a lot of kicking, hitting, screaming, just a lot of acting out in aggression. And that's often due to their own experience or exposure to violence.
So I know the three of you have been working with many others who couldn't join us today, including Monroe County Family Court Judge Joseph Nesser, and you came together several months ago because you realized that an intervention of sorts was needed in an effort to change the possible life trajectory of children who have been exposed to violence. At its core, what are you trying to do? Gwen?
I'll let you speak. Well, I think we are trying to use this body of research that we have, right? So some of this research has been around for a long time, and sometimes it's called trauma-informed care, sometimes it's called a lot of other things, right? But we know that there are best practices that can help people who are suffering from the effects of violence, and many of us are, right? So even if we're not experiencing trauma per se, we've grown up in a pretty violent culture. Many of us have grown up in violent communities, sometimes violent households, and this impacts the way that we're perceiving the world around us. And so what we'd like to do is use this research and create something different, not just critique all the problems that we have, but really create our vision for a world that's less violent, less aggressive, more caring, more empathetic, and more compassionate for not only all the youth that we're working with, but for ourselves.
I think what we've seen in Rochester, what we've witnessed, is that we have phenomenal institutions in Rochester that reach out and within the community. But what we're looking at is bringing all those institutions together, the Rochester City School District, Coordinated Care Services, and different, the Health Foundation and these organizations to say, okay, how can we work together to deal with the situation with trauma-informed care? For instance, we look at family court, and we're looking to change the approach of family court to make it more trauma-informed. We realized through some of the research that we talked about is that 70% of the kids who are involved in some way, shape, or form of family court that are entering to family court have some level of trauma that's not being screened or diagnosed.
I want to jump on that because you said to me that you did a training with family court judges, and Moses, you said that you realized that the young people weren't being asked a pivotal question, and that was, why are you hurt?
Yes.
Why are you hurting? Why is that question important in terms of screening?
Well, I think that's very important because oftentimes what we begin to see in the classroom, what we begin to see in the streets in terms of violence, and we know that hurt people, hurt people,
right.
So we're asking our children why they're hurt, but we also are talking to the family court judges, and we're asking them the question, which is, what can we do different other than continue to remand or to detain children who have been hurt? Let's look at a screening process so we can narrow the focus and make appropriate evidence-based practices to intervene and help not only the child but the family as well.
And also, just to add to that, we know punishment doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to treat and provide therapy and understanding and deep empathy for young people who have experienced trauma and therefore begin to act out in ways that they're familiar. So I think absolutely moving from merely just punishing individuals and really looking at to what happened to you and what kind of treatment can we provide.
So this is not about reinventing the wheel. This is not about creating anything new. This is about taking the partnerships that already exist, building upon that, and developing a screening process, and correct me if I'm wrong, to identify what young people are going through, and then based on the information that you get from the screening process, figuring out the different types of resources or agencies, partners that these young people may need, and how to get access to that information. Is that about right? What am
I think it's sort of all at once too, right? Like, we have a lot of information already that we could use as sort of a screen, right? So we had the Youth Risk Behavior Survey in 2015. It was we're going to have more results again soon. We know that these things are going on for all of us in the community, right? So to some extent, the screening is helpful, and also we don't want to delay doing things that we already know are helpful. So some of the things that are already happening in the schools, that we want to increase mental health services and treatment for kids, but we also want to empower all the adults who are already working with them to just use best practices and empathy skills.
And how will you do that? How does that happen?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of work with restorative practices in the schools. That's evidence-based in many places. There's communication practices that we know show kids that there's more empathy. Simple things like greeting someone by their name. Like, these are techniques that people in marketing and sales have known for years. Show someone that you care about them, right? But it makes a big difference if I say, hey, to Moses versus, hey, Moses, how are you doing? I mean, we automatically feel the difference. So some of them are simple things like this, Yeah,
and I just wanted to add to that. So for us, in terms of the city school district, we're not so much concerned with assessment. Our idea is to universally respond in a way that's trauma informed, because even if an individual has not experienced trauma, it's not going to harm them. So we teach strategies, as she says, greeting students by their name, really taking an interest, how are you, how are things going, making sure that we're aware of our tone and body language, and being aware of what might trigger students to respond in a way that's negative. So really moving from having the information and responding to what we know.
And how do you get, so for the viewers that are watching right now and they're community members and they're saying, well, those aren't my kids, so how does this connect to me? How do you plan for these strategies that you're talking about, these best practices, to really filter out and get into the community so that there's an ownership of it and that they're being implemented?
I would say these are all of our kids, right? Like, there's not I personally don't have children, but all the kids that I come across are part of my community. They're my kids too, right? Like, we have to have these, the CDC calls them safe, stable, nurturing relationships, but we can just say relationships, right? Like, we need to have these relationships with each other in order to build a strong community that cares.
One of the things we're doing with the Futures Without Violence and throughout, with the Department of Justice initiative is that we're doing what they call, 5 gestures. And these 5 gestures incorporate just simple practices of working with kids on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in, encouraging them, inspiring them, motivating them, listening to them. So these things happen in terms of just everyday gestures that people within the community can demonstrate towards a child.
We have to close for now. I know May 8th, a big meeting among all of you with the Rochester City School District. The folks you've been working with will be presenting to the superintendent the research, what you've learned, and we'll look forward to hearing more about this. A special thank you to my guests for joining me today. This is an issue that we've covered in the past on Need to Know, and it is one that we will continue to follow in our community.